Welcome to Singing Demystified. I am Cornelius of Voice Studio East, and I am here today to talk about pharyngeal voice. Unfortunately, pharyngeal voice is generally the hardest to learn of all the registers in my system, which is why I have left it last in my series. The term pharyngeal voice is a direct translation of an old Italian term, voce pharyngea, referring to a vocal coordination in which the pharynx is narrowed medially, resulting in a sound with the lightness and agility of falsetto, but which has some of the bite of modal voice and will connect with either one. It is the original meaning of the term mixed voice, and since it can be developed from falsetto, it has also often been referred to as a reinforced falsetto, though this term has since then acquired a different meaning, more associated with glam rock. The most reliable way to find pharyngeal voice is to start from cry register and turn it into pharyngeal voice. First, we need a very bright cry register at F#4 or higher, and then we need to add more pharyngeal twang to it. If you don't know how to add pharyngeal twang, practice making a whining sound, wah, wah, or a yowling sound. You can also try speaking with a bit of a Valley Girl accent, like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you did that." It helps to make it very exaggerated and with a wide-ranging inflection. Once you have it, return to the cry register at F#4 or higher and add the pharyngeal twang. Then simply slide a perfect fifth upwards into falsetto and back down. It might crack on the first few slides, but if your cry register is well coordinated and sufficiently bright, it should connect after a couple of slides. Once it is connected, you will have found pharyngeal voice at the top, with a bit of cry quality in there for added stability. After getting used to this new coordination, though, you will find that the residual cry quality is not necessary and can be dropped, resulting in this sound. When using this approach to pharyngeal voice, there are two things to look out for. Firstly, it is important that the cry register used is sufficiently bright and fronted to feel weightless. There should not be any appreciable depth to it. In fact, it should be so light that it can be done with a soft, breathy character without much difficulty. Secondly, it is important that the cry register does not feature a restrained quality, like in mixed voice. If the restraint is light, the exercise may still work, but it will lead to a pharyngalized mix instead of pharyngeal voice proper. If the restraint is too strong, though, the exercise is unlikely to work at all. Once you familiarize yourself with the basic coordination, you can develop greater control of it by adding some scales, replacing first the downward slide with a scale, and then later the upward slide as well. It may be helpful to think of shifting the vowel slightly towards O around the middle of the scale. If you're having trouble getting any of this to work, do not worry, there is another approach you can use. Simply start from a twanged falsetto and go into yell timbre, like this. This results in a sound that is too wide and yelpy for most purposes, but which is nevertheless part of pharyngeal voice and can be useful as a starting point. The next step from here is to practice the sliding exercise as before, and thus reconnect it to your modal voice, whether in the form of chest register, call register, or cry register. Also, while we're at it, this would be a good time to work gradually downwards in pitch, extending the range of your pharyngeal voice. The vowels required for pharyngeal voice are the same as those required for twanged call register. That is, they need to be at least in whoop timbre or more open than that, and to use second formant third harmonic tuning or something more fronted than that. This means that the vowel U will need to be directed towards O as we ascend in pitch, and the vowel E will need to be directed towards E. But also, as with twanged call register, pharyngeal voice needs a vocal tract shaping featuring a spacious oral cavity and a medially narrowed pharynx. Though the vowels are altered compared to speech vowels, the articulation cannot be lazy or slurred, as that will result in the restrained quality of mixed voice coming in. Also, despite the comparatively soft volume, the mouth opening must be quite large. A little tip: when trying to expand your arsenal of vowels in pharyngeal voice, it may be helpful to reintroduce the cry quality in the beginning, just for a bit of added error margin. With that in mind, let us try the E vowel as an example. Since the E vowel is a close vowel, it will not be in yell timbre, which makes the first method easier. So we start from cry register and then slide back and forth between that and falsetto, like this. Notice how my mouth opening is wide at the top, not narrow as would be suitable for mixed voice. The width helps create vertical space by encouraging the tongue to drop. That in turn elicits an increase in pharyngeal narrowing to make up for the loss of frontness. If the first method did not work for you when practicing the R vowel, this might be a good time to have another go at it, now that you've learned how to produce pharyngeal voice without relying on yell timbre. Judging by the vocal tract shaping, pharyngeal voice may seem conspicuously related to twanged call register. It may even seem that there is no basis for a categorical distinction, and that pharyngeal voice is simply a lower volume version of twanged call register. This is true in a sense. Reducing the volume in call register, in the high range at any rate, generally does require going towards pharyngeal voice, but the basis for a categorical distinction can be found in the fact that pharyngeal voice has a sufficiently narrow pharynx to erase the distinction between modal voice and falsetto, whereas call register is liable to crack at some point when you make it excessively soft. Anyway, once you've got the hang of pharyngeal voice, you should be able to start from a soft falsetto, swell it into pharyngeal voice, slide down into chest register, call register, or cry register, go back up to pharyngeal voice, and then slide further up into head register, all without a voice crack occurring. You may have noticed that I omitted mixed voice from my list of registers to connect pharyngeal voice with. This is because we will need a different coordination for that, namely the pharyngalized mix I mentioned in my mixed voice episode and promised to return to in this episode. The pharyngalized mix can be thought of as a pharyngeal voice with added restraint, allowing it to use the vowels associated with mixed voice. Conversely, it can also be thought of as a mixed voice with a lot of pharyngeal twang, allowing it to transition smoothly to falsetto and back again. It is effectively a mix between two different approaches to mixy singing, leading to a particularly great variety of possibilities when it comes to light singing and to making transitions between modal and falsetto. And if you are reasonably proficient with both mixed voice and pharyngeal voice, it is not particularly difficult to find pharyngalized mix. The easiest way is to simply slide between mixed voice and pharyngeal voice, as with the other registers, and then hold on to just a bit of the restrained quality, like this. Another method is to find it in a manner analogous to the one we use to find pharyngeal voice. Start with a cried mix at F# 4, make it really bright, add pharyngeal twang, slide back and forth between that and a restrained falsetto until the two connect, and then remove the cry quality once it is no longer needed. As before, once you've found it, it should be possible to start from a soft falsetto, gradually swell it into a pharyngalized mix, and then slide down to mixed voice, all without a voice crack occurring. Once you have gotten the hang of this transition, as well as the one using pharyngeal voice rather than pharyngalized mix, you can proceed to practice scales endlessly to refine your transitions as much as possible until you sound like a Rossini tenor or something. To speed up the process, you might also try to combine pharyngalized mix with semi-occluded vocal tract exercises, like lip trills, straw phonation, humming, etc. You can practice sirens like this, or you can practice singing entire songs in this manner, or even just practice sliding up to an isolated note, opening up the mouth and cycling through vowels, like this. All three uses of SOVTEs will help you become a lot more fluent with very light, mixy singing. A word of warning, though. The SOVTEs will drastically limit your ability to add thyroarytenoid activity, forcing you into very light coordinations. Furthermore, they may induce you to add a lot of medial compression and thin out your voice more than is advisable. Regular viewers may recognize this as what I call a squeezing spiral, and the remedy is to develop a strong chest voice and to sometimes practice semi-occluded vocal tract exercises in a more relaxed manner with a giant voice crack in the middle, like this. But in the case of pharyngeal voice, there is another danger. Like how mixed voice is prone to causing squeezing spirals, pharyngeal voice is prone to causing what we might call squeaking spirals. A squeaking spiral is like a squeezing spiral, but with a progressively increasing narrowing of the pharynx being the culprit, rather than a progressively increasing stretching and squeezing of the vocal folds. There are two things that contribute to a squeaking spiral: taking pharyngeal voice too high in pitch at too soft a volume, and taking it too low in pitch at too loud a volume. Going up in pitch, pharyngeal voice, as with any register, is dependent on some resonance tuning in order to be efficient. It can get this resonance tuning by opening the mouth, raising the larynx, constricting the epiglottic funnel, etc., or by further narrowing the pharynx. Trouble is, in pharyngeal voice, the larynx is usually already close to being as high as it will go, and the pharyngeal constrictor muscles are already active, making it very tempting to just narrow the pharynx even more as you go up in pitch. Instead, you need to either allow the volume to rise, along with the associated larger mouth opening and more constricted epiglottic funnel, or transition to falsetto or head register. Or else, at least make sure to release the pharyngeal narrowing at some point before it gets out of hand. When going down in pitch, pharyngeal voice becomes rather quiet, and pushing the volume will lead to an excessive airflow that could irritate the vocal folds and trigger an instinctive reflex of the pharyngeal constrictor muscles that makes them narrow the pharynx even further to reduce the airflow, and makes them reluctant to relax again. To avoid this, the solution is the same as when trying to avoid squeezing spirals from taking mixed voice too low in pitch. Namely, we need some stronger register to land in. Now, if you have come this far, you probably do have a pretty developed chest voice to land in, so it shouldn't be much trouble. And it should go without saying that squeaking spirals, like squeezing spirals, do not have to be scary at all. Just make sure to land in some stronger register when going down in pitch, and if you do find yourself stuck in a squeaking spiral that you can't get out of, just lay off on the pharyngeal voice for a couple of days and work on chestier singing for a bit. So, to summarize what we have learned in this video, pharyngeal voice is the original meaning of mixed voice, and is what you need in order to connect chest voice and falsetto. It can most easily be developed out of a bright, twangy cry register, but you can also develop it by adding twang and a strong resonance tuning to your falsetto. It requires a similar vocal tract shaping to twanged call register, and therefore features the same range of vowels, but has less depth in the sound. You can achieve more versatility in terms of vowels and vocal tract shaping by using a pharyngalized mix instead, which you can find by adding restraint to pharyngeal voice or by adding pharyngeal twang to mixed voice. You can develop great fluency with it by practicing semi-occluded vocal tract exercises, but watch out for squeezing spirals, and watch out for squeaking spirals when practicing pharyngeal voice, which means do not neglect your chest voice even if you prefer the lighter kind of singing. And with that, we've reached the end of this video. If you have any questions, whether about pharyngeal voice or about anything else, be sure to leave a comment down below. If you wish to get in touch, you can click the link in the description to join my Discord server, or visit my website at voicestudioeast.com, where you can also book lessons, with a 50% discount available on your first booking. Stay tuned, remember to like and subscribe for more content, and as always, thanks for watching.